Thank you guys for joining us here for the semifinal of our Premier Challenge at Psycho Turtle, hosted by Pokemon Labs. I'm Arnie Wolf, joined by our amazing casters, but holding the fort all day, Dennis Geisler. So we're going into a really awesome matchup because we've got some really unusual Pokemon coming up. Gouging Fire is going to be on stream again, Pokemon 2. We've got also the standard, staples of the format: Rillaboom, Amoonguss, Golden Go, Urshifu, and here is the match: Joshua Denk versus Junxi Zhu. Joshua on the left with Gouging Fire, Rillaboom, Entei, Chien-Pao, Kingambit, Ogerpon, Wellspring. Junxi on the right with Landorus Incarnate, Amoonguss, Incineroar, Golden Go, Urshifu, Rapid Strike, and Porygon 2.
Yeah, we saw Josh's team earlier today with that Gouging Fire and the Entei next to each other. It's better than it seems off the top of your head, because you get that Howl bonus, you get both of them boosted up in that attack. Entei is able to get pretty scary pretty quickly, and with the Terra Grass, you're not as afraid of the typical downfalls of fire types, of having two fire types sitting right next to each other. Yeah, this team also, as we mentioned beforehand, Josh's team is all physical attackers.
Which is very interesting in this format with an Intimidate all around, and it's something you see obviously on Junxi's team as well. You got that Incineroar, and so I think the nice thing though is you can negate that with the Kingambit and with the Gouging Fire, because you do have that you have Breaking Swipe to lower the opposing attack stats, you have Howl to raise your own, and then you have Defiance on Kingambit, and so you are just playing with the boosts there. Not to mention, you have Ogerpon, which is just really good in general for redirection. You have Chien-Pao to get your Sword of Ruin boost, and of course, Rillaboom bringing in support there. And Entei cannot get faked out nor intimidated thanks to Inner Focus, so that is a really useful ability. But we're going to kick off this match. Urshifu and Landorus on Junxi's side. Joshua got that Kingambit and Gouging Fire.
Yeah, one of the things I was wondering about early on in this one was, will Junxi respect Kingambit? Will Junxi respect Kingambit enough to not bring Incineroar? And Joshua called the bluff to some degree and brought in the Kingambit. Junxi, no Incineroar just yet.
The one thing to notice is this Urshifu, it is Terra, I'm sorry, it's not Terra, it is Choice Scarf. It's Terra Water, but it's Choice Scarf, and that is, even with the booster energy boost from Gouging Fire, it's most likely going to outspeed it. So there is a lot of potential there to go ahead and just chip it.
It actually could be kind of close.
It's at least the Gouging Fire that I saw earlier when playing normal Choice Scarf, which is the Adamant variant. On Urshifu, you do have Speed 8 and are able to chip about 50%. So that could be very useful, especially too. But switching out isn't that bad.
It's scary.
Because you've got, and Amoonguss is a really good switch in here, I'd say, because you've got Landorus, and Landorus is going to be able to just Earth Power one of these two. I personally think if you're playing Landorus and you see these two, it's such a 50-50 call, because the Gouging Fire could go for a Burning Bulwark, Kingambit could go for Protect, or Terra Dragon, and so the question is, what do you go for in that case? And if you play wrong, you lose your Landorus turn 1.
Yeah, and I think broadly this is solid for Junxi. It will be the Breaking Swipe, which, this is nice. You take very little damage, it doesn't really do anything to you. The big question here, what does Landorus do? Gonna Earth Power, picks correctly.
Yep.
And picks a knockout.
I think that was a safer play. Kingambit is not in a great spot to do too much damage. Obviously, Black Glass is Kowtow Cleave, which is the most amount of damage you can do, but that's about 50%.
Gonna get there.
And so you're free. I mean, yeah, you can Sucker Punch, but except you can't, because there's a thing called Rage Powder that Amoonguss has, and that is going to really hurt. Although it's not terrible, because Chien-Pao does come into play, so you're free to just go for 2 moves, Icicle Crash plus Kowtow Cleave, but you're going to get chipped pretty heavily from an Earth Power, regardless of who you hit. The good news is, you'll survive that Earth Power.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think regardless at this point, it's Amoonguss, it might be time to Terra the Amoonguss, or I'm not really sure. Could go for like a Protect on the Landorus and try to Spore something. I'm not really sure.
I think a Terra is fine. If you Terra Follow Me and basically force the Chien-Pao into going for Icicle Crash, or it's not going to be terrible.
Yeah, and it means Landorus gets another hit off, which is important because those Landorus hits really hurt.
Yeah, you can also go for, and this is another good option, you could just go for the Terra, like that, and then go for Pollen Puff onto the Chien-Pao, expecting them to target. Therefore, they don't redirect. That's fine, though, because you can still hit and break the Chen Pao's sash, and then you can protect your lander so that way you know it doesn't take any damage. Or, yeah, I mean, they're both good plays.
I think the Rage Powder is just the safer play overall.
And there's that Icicle Crash. Terra Water, not going to do a ton at all.
Absolutely nothing. Earth Power, we'll go to the King Gambit. Some good damage.
Really good.
Okay. No Spadef drop, which means no attack boost. Doesn't pick up the Amoonguss.
Oh.
That's pretty bad for
That's crucial.
Joshua. Because Junxi now is... That's another turn of Landorus being able to do something.
Yeah. It's then you're also now Sucker Punch. Yeah, that's not happening. You could pick up a double knockout, but still not great because at that point, by the time you pick up the double knockout, you're gonna lose the Focus Sash on Chen Pao or lose King Gambit in general.
Yeah, I was gonna say you also probably won't pick up a double knockout. Ooh, going for the Sucker Punch.
Oof. Icicle Crash.
Icicle Crash. So now Landorus will stay up regardless. I think it was with the expectation that King Gambit was going to drop anyways.
Yeah.
Like with the expectation that this Earth Power is going to target King Gambit, knock it out.
Worth a shot.
Which I think is the... Ooh, it will be the Chen Pao though.
I think that's a solid play, especially if you've got Urshifu Rapid Strike in the back, you could just go for a U-turn and protect Landorus and then switch into your final Pokemon if you want. But there is Urshifu, yeah. I mean, they both have Sucker Punch, so like...
They both do have Sucker Punch, but they're both like resisted Sucker Punches.
Yeah, I would U-turn. I would not go for any... Knowing that there's an Ogerpon in the back, I would definitely U-turn.
I think U-turn is the clear option here, and then Landorus can keep going for damage.
Yeah, actually,
if you want to.
You can U-turn out onto Chen Pao, which if it is... you either get a really nice switch in to Ogerpon, which will take 50% from the U-turn, and then get an Intimidate drop from Incineroar when it switches in. Or you do that, which is really not bad either, actually. Yeah. Going for that Incineroar switching right away.
Gotta make sure to get rid of that King Gambit now. Though.
Yeah, maybe. I think we're seeing the U-turn on the King Gambit.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad.
No.
You gotta make sure to get rid of the King Gambit now, but you might just get rid of the King Gambit now. And I don't even think a Sucker Punch at this point will take out the Urshifu.
There's that.
And it isn't even going to be there.
Yeah, okay. That was the play.
I like that.
Yep.
I really do like that. And that means that the Incineroar can pivot out now, honestly, if it wants to.
Yeah, it does. It's not Assault Vest, so it's a little weaker in special defense stat, but it does have Parting Shot. And honestly, I'm not really sure you need to. The good news for Joshua, I will say this, is you have your Terra available still, if I'm not mistaken. So, no, you don't use it on King Gambit. So, at this point, you just hope that you hope that your Ogerpon is faster than Landorus, or... Because that's about it. I mean, if not, though, it's not even that bad because Urshifu can go for U-turn, but it's going to be it's just one of those things where I think, I personally think...
I think even then you can probably get the Incineroar out with like another Parting Shot on the Ogerpon. You have to finish off the Chen Pao eventually, but...
I think you're pretty solid to go for a Parting Shot. I would probably... You could do that, or... go for the Parting Shot, just cycling the Intimidates. It's really important right now, and then especially protect on Landorus. I think it's also a really nice play here because if you see that, assuming that your Urshifu or Landorus will go down, you can now fake it out on this next turn and it's over. But double protect is not terrible either.
Yeah, it still does mean that nothing happened and an additional Intimidate is coming in.
Yeah, and I think with Urshifu being in the spot, you've got free U-turn onto anything here, both of which it'll do decent. And so you can either get rid of the Chen Pao right away, or you can chip Ogerpon to at least 60%, and knowing that the worst thing you're going to take is a Sucker Punch. And so I think, honestly, I would switch the Landorus out and U-turn.
Yeah. Yeah, might as well. Not really a huge negative to that.
Yeah, I think that's, in my opinion, I think that's the call. Just because I don't... Yeah, there's really no negative to that, because then you have your -2 on both, essentially, and that's really useful, and you have fake out potential, even if it's probably not going to come into play with the double protect.
Chen Pao, then it's just the Ogerpon, and at that point you definitely won. You just have to play enough around this Chen Pao and get it out of the way.
Yeah. If this U-turn goes on to Chen Pao, I think that this game is going to Junxi, but we will find out. If not, still really good position. Yeah.
And there goes that Chen Pao. Now it is just the Ogerpon remaining. Landorus will come back in, and if this attack goes into Incineroar and it's not a crit, it's even worse.
if you're Junxi, you're hoping it goes into Incineroar, because then you get a really valuable piece of knowledge, which is whether or not. Okay, well, you don't see that, but I was gonna say whether or not your Ogerpon is, or the Ogerpon is slower or faster than Landorus.
Yeah.
Because a lot of Ogerpons right now are being calculated to be faster than Landorus, specifically for Landorus.
You have to get pretty fast to do that, though. I think you have to be Jolly.
Yeah, like 188 Jolly, which is quite an investment. I think you just click U-turn twice, and that's pretty much it. It doesn't matter about the spiky shield. You know, you'll take a little damage, but if you're Urshifu, you don't even worry about it.
Say Urshifu won't take any damage.
No, the Incineroar with the fake out, it'll get a little bit, but it's what?
Yeah, like, I mean, Incineroar will still be able to Flare Blades do as much as it wants. Close combat.
Okay, it's solid.
Yeah, second close combat will do it. I think close combat's stronger than U-turn in this spot.
They're both pretty solid.
Yeah.
And at that point, it is just a game over. Obviously, yeah, the close combat going first because it is Choice Scarf and picking up the knockout.
Yep, and the critical hit.
Just to top it off. That's when the crits always come in, when you don't need them.
It was a nice game number 1 for Junxi there. I think the key moment really was that Amoonguss taking both of those hits, keeping the Landorus metaphorically standing next to it. It floats in its cloud, but metaphorically standing next to it.
No, that Amoonguss Terra is really, really useful. And Terra Water Amoonguss is just, I think, really good in the format right now.
It's really difficult to answer Amoonguss's normal typing and then also the water typing.
Yeah.
It's nearly impossible to have it, especially there just aren't a lot of, like, the only real good Pokemon of, well, I get there's Rillaboom, I suppose, and Ogerpon with the Horn Leech, but not a whole lot of stuff that's good can hit Amoonguss.
No, because then you gotta rely on Entei and Gathering Fire to take it out if it then forces that Terra, but if it is, you're already committing a couple Pokemon to both the Terra and the non-Terra.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where you're just like,
and when it's standing next to the Landorus, I mean, that Landorus, Sheer Force, Life Orb, that's so much damage. That's just an obscene amount of damage.
Oh yeah. We
you
saw
are
how much it took.
something is getting absolutely destroyed if you devote any time to taking out Amoonguss. Yeah. And you can't not devote time to taking out Amoonguss because Rage Powder it exists.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that Earth Power do 75% on King Gambit after the Terra to Dragon. It's just an insane amount of damage. And it's, if you resist, doesn't matter, you got Sludge Bomb, and that does just as much to grass types. So it's really scary for Joshua. I think Josh really needs to just kind of work onto priority. I think that's kind of the play here. You know, focus on the Amoonguss, getting rid of that. I think also losing Gouging Fire turn 1 really hurt. But I think if you play into your priority, you have double, with Grassy Glide and Extreme Speed, you can play double priority with Entei and Rillaboom. I think that's not terrible. And actually, I would feel a bit more relieved knowing that this Amoonguss is in the lead right away and there's 2 grass types on the field. It's like, okay, cool, I get a free focus on Urshifu, and I know that the worst thing I do is take 50% from a U-turn. That's it. They can't Spore me, they can maybe Pollen Puff and get rid of my Ogerpon, but if I'm Josh right now, I'm like, okay, sweet, double up onto the Urshifu. Or maybe even switch out Ogerpon, or actually, Spiky Shield maybe, so you live the Pollen Puff, because Pollen Puff does a lot onto Ogerpon, more than you would expect it. So
yeah, this is a really nice feeling opener for Joshua, I think. Like, you do just kind of sit there.
Yeah.
It is the big benefit of it, is you do just kind of sit there. There's not a whole lot that Amoonguss... obviously, the Pollen Puff can do a bit of damage, but there's not a whole lot that these Pokemon can do to you. You can't do a ton either, but yeah, Urshifu, it's not even... I think it's afraid enough of Grassy Glide where it can't even stick around. Or Fake Out and then getting hit by something.
This was a very wise play, in my opinion.
I think this is smart. It means that you have a very passive duo to a degree, but Incineroar is still Incineroar.
Water Ivy Cudgel. It is at -1 though.
Okay.
Does a decent amount. The Wood Hammer. Oh, there's the Citrus Berry first.
Berry, yeah.
But
that was still a really nice read there from Joshua.
Yeah. The Wood Hammer connecting. That's going to do a decent amount still. If it wasn't for the Citrus Berry, it would have been a goner.
Yeah.
Still a really good spot. The Pollen Puff, really good call there on Junxi. Nice thing too here is you can basically get your Incineroar back to full health.
Ugh, that's so brutal. Oh man, that feels that feels horrible to see.
Yeah.
Just like
And now it's a game of which one switches.
Well, that's the thing as well, where Incineroar does have that slow switch out with a parting shot.
Yeah.
As always, Incineroar is Incineroar.
Yep.
Unless King Gambit comes in, it doesn't have to be that afraid of anything in particular.
Well, it's surprised to see an Entei switch in here. Fake Out goes onto the Ogerpon. That is to be expected.
Fair enough.
Yes, we're gonna see this. A Pollen Puff. Okay, it could have been a Spore. But
A Spore
Entei,
would have been a really bold call, but
I feel like it's
not that I think it would have been a bad call, but it would have been very bold.
Yeah, I mean, there is a very good shot though with Incineroar up against Rillaboom and Ogerpon.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, one of the
That's
two
true.
switching out. Which one? It's a game of guessing.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think going for Pollen Puff and basically making your Incineroar, which is already bulky as is, back to full health, is just a better play.
Yeah, especially because now you still are threatening Ogerpon a little bit.
Yeah.
With everything you've got here.
This is an interesting one. This is the time where I think Junxi should really tear out. There's a lot of options here. You've got the the Sacred Fire coming out possibly onto the Amoonguss. But you could also see the Ivy Cudgel on Incineroar. You could see Hornleech on Amoonguss if you predict the Terra right. So many options, but the Terra is going onto Incineroar, and it's going to be Terra Poison.
Terra Poison Incineroar. I'm interested in seeing this because Stomping Tantrum is still super effective if that's a choice from Entei.
Amoonguss going for the Protect. I think this is interesting because you do lose that Ivy Cudgel.
Sacred Fire. Ooh.
Now, okay, Parting Shot I'm guessing is going out on Entei. I'm guessing the Ivy Cudgel is to make sure you don't, the Terra Poison is to make sure Ivy Cudgel doesn't do that much, and there's that Parting Shot on Entei. So now you're in much better shape to take a Sacred Fire from the Entei on your own Amoonguss, and pretty decent switch out. I think, honestly, I would not go into the Urshifu unless you're planning on going for U-turn on the Ogerpon. But other than that, like, you can go into Landorus relatively safely.
Yeah, I wonder what that fourth Pokemon is.
I feel like Joshua's got a really decent switch out into Entei into Rillaboom. Like, there's really nothing stopping that. Ogerpon could go for Spiky Shield, but at this point, you can even do a double switch. But yeah, I would go for Ivy Cudgel as well, just assuming something is either Landorus or most likely Incineroar's coming back in.
And that's the thing as well, where since you were able to Parting Shot out on the Entei, you don't have to worry about it being immune to Intimidate.
Yeah. And I think with the Intimidate, though, that's going to be super useful. Ogerpon's already at -1. You've got Incineroar looming in the back to give it a -2. You switch out into Rillaboom, well, it's going to take a -1 as well. And that's just something that we've been seeing so much of this format. This is why Entei and Dragonite have been super popular, as well as Clear Amulet as an item, is just because you have so many Intimidate users between Incineroar and Landorus, and then you have Parting Shot, and there's so much stat dropping that's happening right now. And we're probably going to see it again with that Incineroar. There it is, yeah.
Yeah. That was a little less damage than I think I expected from that U-turn. It means it won't 2-hit KO, definitely with the grassy terrain recovery. It won't be that crazy. That's
either a clue for Junxi to think, okay, you know what? That Ogerpon is a lot more bulkier than I thought.
Every time.
And Incineroar's back to full health.
It's just gotta be upsetting to see.
Oh, yeah.
Especially because you don't, like, the only thing that's really threatening the Amoonguss so far has been that Sacred Fire.
Yeah. I think actually this is not a terrible spot for Joshua though. You can fake out the Amoonguss, switch on into Entei. You may get Parting Shotted, but it's fine because -1 Parting Shot is solid.
I guess my biggest concern is what if Ogerpon just gets blown up by Flare Blitz? One, will it drop to 1 Flare Blitz?
I think that's why you switch to Entei right now.
Yeah.
And then you fake out on Amoonguss to make sure you don't get spored on Entei's side.
I guess either of them getting hit by Flare Blitz, like either of the Pokemon out right now.
Yeah. I mean, that is the scariest, is to Flare Blitz onto the Rillaboom. And there is Entei, so yeah. That's the play you gotta make. But if Junxi read this right, the right play would be Flare Blitz onto Rillaboom. But honestly, even a knockoff on either would be good as well. Or Parting Shot.
Parting Shot, yeah. Parting Shot's not bad. This means we're going to be in the cycle for a while, I think.
This is why people go for Entei Terra Grass, though, because if you do see that Urshifu, it becomes mind games. Though I wouldn't be surprised.
Actually, the problem here is if Urshifu comes back in, it might get Grassy Glided.
Yeah, I think
Grassy Glide Extreme Speed would really hit it.
This is the time to bring in Landorus if you've got it, for sure.
I think it's got to be, but it's also it also feels kind of bad to do that also, because you still could get Grassy Glide Extreme Speed, and you might not drop to it, but you're still unhappy with it.
All right, going back into Urshifu. Yeah, you may want to. It looks like it's just preservation. This is not great. I mean, honestly, I think if it's such a 50-50 call right now. Who's switching out? Who's staying in? I think personally the best bet is to get rid of the Entei and go back into Ogerpon for potential Surging Strikes, because I mean, if anything, the U-turn's gonna go on to Rillaboom, and then you're free to with Entei. I mean, Entei does have no damage at the moment, so maybe the better play is to go into Ogerpon or just stay in with Rillaboom, but there's so many mind games right now on which is going to be the right call, and both Pokemon staying in on both sides.
Ooh,
with a Terrestrial incoming.
Switches.
Ooh, that may have been a premature Terra to Grass. I mean, it's smart knowing that Urshifu is there, but now if you've got Landorus in your back, if you're Junxi, you've got Landorus in the back, that's what you wanted. And I think, obviously, I personally think the U-turn onto the Rillaboom was the safer play regardless.
Yeah.
And now if Landorus comes out, you've got Sludge Bomb potential on 3 of your 4 Pokemon, and the last one is Chenpao. So it's something to watch out for, but I don't know if that Terra may just put Landorus in the spot it needs to be.
Yeah, and it also means Cinera's a little happier coming back in now, if you want to bring Incineroar back in, which, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And even if the Intimidate does not hit Entei, you've got Flare Blitz to do so.
Yeah, now you're actually able to just hit Flare Blitz. Sacred Fire.
Ooh.
The scariest thing about it is that it... Oh, wait. It can still burn.
It could still burn.
Could still burn. Hold up. It did not, but it could have.
Pollen Puff incoming on the gas.
Yeah. Yippee!
But this time we're connecting with the Rillaboom to pick up the knockout.
Okay. I like that. I like that. Try to break the stall a little bit here, and honestly, you're not in a bad position to use Pollen Puff again next turn.
I like Chenpao here. I know Ogerpon's probably a safe bet, but I like Chenpao because you're free to then Sacred Fire, get rid of the Amoonguss, or whatever comes out on the right side. Ogerpon is fine, but the thing with Ogerpon right now is there is no world where Urshifu clicks a water move at the moment. So it is decent to go into it now and just kind of follow me for Amoonguss, and then continue to Sacred Fire onto the left slot until you're able to come on in and just Sacred Fire the Amoonguss with Chenpao on the field.
I guess the problem if you follow me here is you do still have to be concerned about Incineroar outputting damage.
Yeah, and that's very potential. That's got a lot of potential. There is also potential to just go for Sacred Fire too onto the Incineroar slot.
Yeah, I honestly think that might be the better play.
It's a close one, yeah. Or Spiky. You could go that or Spiky Shield.
Hard switch out on the Incineroar. Honestly, I don't think it's crazy to bring... Ooh,
it's a Landorus.
I'm a little scared about that. I was going to say, I don't think it's crazy to bring out Urshifu here, because honestly, the Urshifu doesn't have a whole lot of value. Sacred Fire. Less damage than I thought it would be, honestly.
Ivy Cudgel onto the Landorus.
That's what I was worried
Really
about.
good play. Really good play from Joshua there. That is exactly what you needed. And now that Terra on Entei is a much safer bet. The Pollen Puff does not quite pick up a knockout on Ogerpon, but it does do 80, which is above 33%. Pretty good for an Amoonguss.
That is pretty good for an Amoonguss. Yeah, I like the Urshifu switch in there because, well, I guess now you can U-turn here fairly safely if you're Urshifu.
You gotta lock onto a one move now too, because you've lost both of them.
Incineroar's
still in the back. Okay.
Still in the back.
So you know what? U-turn into Incineroar is good.
You can U-turn into Ogerpon, get out of there, get Incineroar in, try to get Entei out of the way, and then it means that then you'll be able to Surging Strikes the Chenpao.
It's gonna be close, yeah. I wouldn't even be surprised too if we see a double like target onto the Urshifu slot. Obviously, U-turn's going to be the best bet in this scenario, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see that Amoonguss try and Pollen Puff the Incineroar and get back up to health. But and there's the Amoonguss switch out actually, which is not bad, getting a regenerator boost.
Yeah. Well, and it weakens the Ogerpon again.
Yeah. It's not that Ogerpon's really the damage-dealing Pokemon right now, but
it's still at least a little bit of a threat.
Yeah,
it's still nice, even though Ice Spinner. Okay, I don't hate that.
Not bad.
I don't like it, but I don't hate it.
It's not bad.
I don't want to be locked into. I guess the question is, how much does Ice Spinner do against
50-50 burn? No burn.
Hey. I guess the question is, how much does Ice Spinner do up against Chen Pao?
Yeah. I think...
Because you don't want to be locked into that just against Chen Pao. Although at the same time, Ice Spinner against Entei right now, call it, how much damage does it do? It should do a lot of damage.
Should do a lot. Enough.
And if you can, I don't know, switch Incineroar out? I don't know. Maybe that would not be necessary.
I don't know the right call here.
I don't know the right call either. It's the first turn Incineroar's in, right? You can fake out.
Yeah, you can fake out.
You can fake out.
Would I, though? I actually think
something like fake out.
Yeah,
Fake out on Chen Pao. Ice Spinner onto Entei.
This can probably do at least 30. Yeah, I was gonna say like 75%. It's close to it.
Not Noko though. Because now the concern is, okay, it's Stomping Tantrum, but even still, now the concern is you are now locked into Ice Spinner against Chen Pao, which isn't ideal.
No. Good news is Samungus has Samungus does have
a little more HP.
Well, that and it does have Protect.
Protect.
There's something that obviously Junxi doesn't know this, but Joshua's Entei has one single Sacred Fire left.
Yeah, it's not.
You gotta save that.
PP upped.
I think you go for a double up. Yeah, see, I would have done the same thing.
There's the Protect.
I think you double up with a Extreme Speed plus Sucker Punch onto the Urshifu and hope that it knocks out, but I don't think it's gonna be enough.
I think it will. Ice Spinner, yeah, that'll come out.
If it's a Sacred Sword, if you double up, then it's a Sacred Sword. That's gonna be the key here. That's gonna be close. I'm not sure the amount of damage. It's Icicle Crash on Amoonguss. Okay. Oh man. Question becomes how much.
If you Icicle Crash Amoonguss again, yeah. That's the question. How much does Ice Spinner do? Because 2 hits from Chen Pao should win this battle. Yeah.
I'd imagine.
Icicle Crash will absolutely finish off Amoonguss, and whatever hit should be able to take down Urshifu with the defense drop. And if Urshifu can't get it in 2 Ice Spinners...
There's the first
Let's see.
Spinner.
Ice Spinner? Ice resists Ice. That is no damage.
Nothing.
That's like no damage.
If Icicle Crash one hit KO or it takes it out,
absolutely should. Yeah.
That's it. It's going to Joshua. Wow. Wow. I think there is a very crucial point there in that match that I really loved that Joshua made, and we were talking a little bit about logic of the game. And to go for an Ivy Cudgel and a potential switch in when Junxi brought out the Landorus was so big. Sacred Sword, that's also really valuable information. The Sacred Sword does about 40%. Keep that in mind. I think you could Sucker Punch because it destroys Scarp, so yeah, there's no use in doing anything else. So we go to game 3. This is
boy, that was a really interesting one.
Crazy.
And I think that speaks to. I'm interested to see if either of them decides to shake things up in game number 3, because we could tell they were in a stalemate for a while in game number 2.
Yeah.
The Incineroar came in, and neither of the grass types were able to do anything, and Entei came in, and Incineroar wasn't able to do anything, and so Urshifu came out, and can't do anything against those grass types, and so it's back and forth. And I don't know if they want to keep doing this.
Honestly,
I don't know. I don't know if that's... I don't know if one of them wants to try to go for a more aggressive starting position, if one of them sees a opportunity in a much better spot, you know?
You know, I think, honestly, Junxi did bring the right form. I don't think Golden Go is really great here at all, considering there's 3-4 resistances, and Make It Rain is its best move, and so it's not the right Pokemon to bring in. Porygon 2, not really going to help you much either. I
honestly think there's a degree to which both of them brought the right 4 Pokemon.
I think so. I think the only thing is, you gotta make sure that your Landorus is in the right spot. Which
you gotta make sure your Landorus is in the right spot, and you gotta make your Terra count.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the Terra for the Incineroar, it wasn't bad, but I also think that it wasn't necessarily like I think there were potential Terras that would have been better.
Terra Water on Amoonguss would have really helped that matchup.
It would have helped towards the end, yeah. Although Amoonguss sitting there as a grass type for most of the battle was the factor that kept that battle so long in the first place. So
that's the thing too when you're playing with essentially 3 grass types: Rillaboom, Entei, Terra, Entei of course, and then Ogre Pond. you can't really do much with the Amoonguss. I mean, you can heal
all your Amoonguss can really do is heal.
Yeah, and that's not
and it can throw out Pollen Puffs, and those Pollen Puffs are actually kind of hurting.
Yeah, you know, it did
that was actually
good
kind
amount
of
of
relevant. Yeah.
And I think it did like 40% or it was a 3-hit KO on Ogerpon, so decent amount. And we're going to see that double grass lead for Joshua's side again. And again, the Urshifu Amoonguss. Get some popcorn. We're in for another long one.
Alrighty. let's see it again.
You know, one thing you could do here...
Although at the same time, it's like, if Ogerpon just goes for the raw Ivy Cudgel into the Urshifu slot, like... Dare Junxi to switch into Incineroar and potentially take a crit Ivy Cudgel.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't predict the crit regardless, but I don't think it's a bad move to just target that slot with something like Grassy Glide, Ivy Cudgel, or Fake Out Ivy Cudgel.
Yeah, I think Grassy Glide is
the worst thing that would happen is, the worst thing that would happen is someone gets hit by Pollen Puff. I don't know.
You know, one thing
but you could also position more aggressively. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a good switch out for Rillaboom. I think actually for Junxi, you're just you know what, the hard switch out's not bad, but
I guess the concern is what if whoa, that's a different Pokemon.
That's a much safer switch in than anything we've seen. Special attack boost as well.
Special attack with that. Yeah, actually, and this is Terra Poison. It also has Ice Beam and it has Terra Blast. So this thing could actually just start like actually blasting some
could do some
grass types here.
Ivy Cudgel.
See how much this does. Ooh, it does get the crit.
It does about 50%.
It doesn't do that much. Ooh. Oh, that was
wrong switch out. Wrong switch out.
I like the read there, but yeah, not the right switch out.
The good news is a double up on Porygon 2 will KO. No method for it to recover at the moment, and you're pretty much free. As much as I like Porygon 2 and I thought it was a good switch in.
Will it double into Porygon 2 KO it? That was a crit Ivy Cudgel.
With a Sacred Fire, you can double up, yeah. If you tear it, you have to tear your Entei right now though.
Yeah.
Which I think there's no downside to that at the moment.
I'm worried about this Porygon 2 taking this hit.
It's not going to take it. It's not going to take it.
I'll trust you. At that point, it'll just be like a Pollen Puff, because I think that it has to be a Pollen Puff out of the Amoonguss.
Yeah, and then you Pollen Puff plus U-turn. But if that's the case, I don't think that you have to basically target that slot. And if Chenpao's in the back, it's just not great to have Landorus without support. And I have a feeling that the Pokemon. I mean, it looks like here Landorus was left out, but. And I don't think that Incineroar... okay, you know what? Ivy Cudgel may have...
Arnie, I trusted you.
I think it's still a KO. I think it's still KO.
I trusted you, Arnie.
Because the crit does enough. Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I'm pretty sure. I am pretty confident it's still a knockout. And so Amoonguss can... Yeah. The Terra Fire... Rough. Or the Terra Grass was kind of what needed to happen.
Yeah. And that's rough. That's too... That's nothing the Amoonguss has done so far. It has just sat there.
And we get the reveal on the fourth Pokemon. Yeah. Not bringing in Landorus, I think, is really, really going to hurt, because...
I think it will hurt. I like the Porygon 2. I think just the fact that it got hit so hard is the disappointment there.
Yeah. If it didn't take the crit turn 1, I think it would have lived.
I think so. Like, at the very least, if it didn't take the crit turn 1, it could have been a little bit more... It could have played things out a little bit slower.
Yeah, and this is a pretty safe Terra here for Junxi.
I think so.
It is going to be that Incineroar, and I think
at this point there are 8 billion grass types remaining on Joshua's team, so no reason to Terra your Amoonguss.
Exactly. Did Joshua call this and go for the Sacred Fire? Okay, one for Stomp Tantrum, which is safe no matter the Terra.
Yeah, it's safe into either.
And Ivy Cudgel, I'm guessing, as well? It's -1, but it could crit and potentially knock this thing out.
Yeah.
No crit.
It's still more than enough damage, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see this Incineroar go for Flare Blitz and then heal right back up.
Flare Blitz, Pollen Puff.
Yep, that's the play.
I think that actually is the play. I really think the Incineroar Flare Blitz really... Ooh, that was good damage. That's really good damage.
Not a crit. That's
now,
insane.
Hold on a second.
That did a lot.
That was... Yeah, I guess I didn't realize with how much pivoting around that Incineroar was doing.
Yeah.
That boy do just do some crazy damage.
There's Pollen Puff.
And there's the Pollen Puff indeed.
Okay, very interesting here, because Flare Blitz is very scary.
Flare Blitz is indeed very scary.
I think if you go into Chenpao and just protect, that's a really nice start, because you're free to just go for an Ivy Cudgel, and regardless, it's -1, yeah, but regardless of what it does, it's a very nice boost of damage there. And then Chen Pao can go for Sucker Punch or Protect, and then you can switch, and there's a lot more shenanigans you can do here. I think the Protect is obvious. Good spot here. And going into Rillaboom is also a good spot. The question is that Flare Blitz going into that slot?
What's the read from Junxi? Do you go for something passive here of like a switch out, a parting shot, something like that, or do you just like do you just go in and try to hit the target that is less defended? All right, the switch out.
That's actually really good for Josh here because you have a free fake out on Urshifu going into the next turn.
You do, yeah.
And allows you to go for an Icicle Crash on Amoonguss. So really safe play there. Could also switch back into Ogerpon, but I think you want to do that after the Incineroar is back on the field. And a Protect, but it failed. So that you're still free to use Protect. Which is really useful.
Yeah, that means Amoonguss can Protect this turn. I could see like a Protect and then a switch back into Incineroar. Something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what the safe play is. And if you call this, honestly, with Joshua, I wouldn't be surprised if we just see like Woodhammer plus Sacred Sword, or maybe Ice Spinner, or Icicle Crash. I don't know, but I don't think the Urshifu is. I think the Urshifu needs to hard switch. You could U-turn. Actually, it's not terrible to U-turn, but then you still have the potential to get Grassy Glided, and that's not good.
You could get Fake Outed, also.
Yeah, it's also very, very true.
Like either way, you might just. You might not be allowed to U-turn.
So just hard switch out into Incineroar. There's too much risk. Okay, the Amoonguss switch. Not terrible.
I don't hate this. I actually don't hate this at all. It definitely plays around the preconceived notions of what these Pokemon are about to do. And if Urshifu doesn't get like destroyed this turn, that's really good.
There you go.
That's really good.
That was really important. And you break the Focus Sash on Chen Pao.
Yeah. I kind of wish it was just a raw Surging Strikes into that slot. Even though Ogerpon could have come back out and that would have been really bad. Although I really like that. Actually, that was a really good turn for Junxi.
Most Surging Strikes do not actually one-hit KO Chen Pao, which is interesting. So but a Sacred Sword on the Amoonguss slot is gonna pick up the Rocky Helmet damage. Really good switching for Junxi.
That's huge. That's a really sick play from Junxi.
I think that's making it pretty tough here.
That's gonna be rough to come back from, because yeah, this Flare Blitz can, well, it's still not over. Ogerpon is there. Ogerpon is chilling.
Let's keep in mind that neither Pokemon, I believe, like you could still Ivy Cudgel, you could get a Woodhammer, so Incineroar's not safe. Grassy Glide, I think, yeah, you just double up onto the Incineroar slot, and then it's a matter of who's faster, right? So Horn Leech actually going in, I guess assuming the switch out was in play, plus the Woodhammer. 2 resisted moves though, and an Intimidated Rillaboom is just not going to do it.
Yeah. I don't know there was a lot of better answers there.
I think Ivy Cudgel would have been safer, but
I mean, Ivy Cudgel might have been a bit safer, yeah.
And there's a burn on Ogerpon just to add to the flames here.
That might do it.
And a Pollen Puff to just chip it enough. So.
Well, it'll drop to burn in a couple turns, and now the question is, well,
2 turns. Yeah. And Josh just forfeits it.
Just gonna forfeit.
Which means Junxi Zhu is going through to the finals to face Giovanni Costa, I believe, in our final matchup. What a very, very intense game. I mean, there was so many Intimidate shenanigans and stuff. One thing I do want to point out, though, Junxi, really nice adjustment in Game 3 here. Even though you didn't bring out Landorus and Porygon 2 went down relatively fast, there were some really good reads with Incineroar, and we were talking about being more aggressive. I think Junxi saw that, you know what, if you're going to bring out, like, essentially 3 or 2.5 grass types with Entei being Terra, just go for the Flare Blitz into it.
I played the first battle in the game. I know that fire is good against grass.
Exactly.
Let's just launch out these Flare Blitzes.
So I think that adjustment really helped, and that's exactly why we're going to be seeing Junxi again in just a few moments. But get some water, get a snack, and get ready for our final match of our Premier Challenge. See you then.